is now. And welcome to the SVK Crypto Podcast. 15 minutes of crypto fame.
My name's Charles Storry. I will be your host for the next 15 minutes, coming live from the city of London. So let's get down to business. Today's Thursday, the 8th of February 2018. Bitcoin is currently trading at $8,261. That's up 2% in the last 24 hours. We saw a low of $7,637, a high of $8,558, going back down to the current level of $8,261. Bitcoin's dominance is currently 35.8% of the current market cap, which is currently $388 billion. An interesting week it's been, I think it's fair to say. We saw a lot of the new money coming out of the market. We saw a large market sell-off. And then what we saw is well-established projects and well-established names in the crypto space at large discounts. We saw a lot of money flowing back into the market. It's been interesting. I mean, the last 24 hours especially, we saw a huge pickup. We saw over 100 billion come back into the market. Now, I think this wasn't unexpected. I know there's a lot of negativity out there of people thinking that we hadn't hit the bottom at 280 billion. It was still more to go. But I felt 280, 250, 280 around that mark was a low point for the market. Ethereum's currently trading at $801. That's down 3% in the last 24 hours. It's had an interesting 24 hours. We saw a low of $757, a high of $845, going back to the current level of $801. Ripple, for any Ripple holders out there, is currently trading at 75 cents, and that's down 3% today. We saw a low point in the last 24 hours of Ripple of 72, going to a high of 79, and then going gently back down to the current level of 75 cents. Cardano is at 34 cents. Interesting proposition. That's down 3% today. Cardano had a low point in the last 24 hours of around 33 cents, going to a high of 36, and then going down to the current level of 34 cents. NEO is currently trading at $109. That's down 2% in the last 24 hours. We saw a low of $103, a high of $117. As everyone knows, I'm a big believer in NEO and everything they're doing for the space and their own technology. What I would also add is a lot of people have been emailing me asking whether the crypto sell-off is over, which is a key question, I guess. My response has been as follows. No one has a crystal ball in this market, but what we're seeing is capital coming back into the market. We're seeing prices going back up to their level, to not to their highs, but kind of regaining back to the highs, kind of building that momentum back in. We're seeing volumes kicking back into the crypto space, and especially selected assets. We're seeing key features that enable the space to continue the momentum it has been on. Now, whether it's going to regain the exact momentum we had in kind of December of last year, that's for us to find out. But I think we're just getting started, and this was just a small sell-off. We're going to be picking up, and I reckon we're going to go 4 times as high. Obviously not at once. It's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride, but I'm in it for the long run, and I hope everyone else is. QuantStamp, before we wrap up, is at 30 cents. That's down 1% today. QuantStamp's low in the last 24 hours was 27 cents, going to a high of 31, then going back down to the current level of 30 cents. Today's show has got a slightly different format. We have the CEO of the Gollum project. Julian, the CEO of Gollum, will be on the show very shortly. And for anyone that doesn't know about Gollum, just a quick recap. Gollum is a global open source decentralized supercomputer that anyone can access. It's made up of combined power of users, machines from PCs to entire data centers. Golem is capable of computing a wide variety of tasks, from CGI rendering through to machine learning to scientific computing. Golem's limitations are only defined by our developer community creativity. Golem creates a decentralized sharing economy of computing power and supplies software developers with a flexible, reliable, and cheap source of computing power. Let's get into the interview. So on today's show, we have the CEO of Gollum, Julian. Julian, how's it going?
Very well, thank you.
Perfect. So to kick things off, where does the name Golem come from? Because I've heard different things from different people, and it'd be great to hear it from the source itself.
Well, I believe there are different stories coming from me as well from time to time. But basically, this is kind of tribute to Stanisław Lem, who was great Polish science fiction writer, and actually he described Golem in a short story back at the beginning of 70s. That short story was called 137 Seconds, which doesn't make a great name of a project. So we took Golem instead, which comes from Golem 14, which was the name of other novel by Stanisław Lem, and Golem 14 is a supercomputer that achieves singularity. So pretty good name for a project.
Perfect.
And obviously then the Golem name itself goes deep to the Jewish mythology, and is a heavyweight term, but perhaps we don't have time to discuss it all.
Perfect. So if you'd be so kind, would you be so kind to give the listeners out there a high-level overview of the Golem project itself?
Sure. So the shortest description of the project is that we want to create a market for computing power, like open market that everyone can join and buy computing power and sell computing power. So in a way, create a kind of unified commodity from computing. And this is what it is. And of course, that imposes many assumptions on how that market should work. So that should be decentralized market, because we have centralized markets for computing power already, or rather centralized vendors of computing power. This should be peer-to-peer market and peer-to-peer network and peer-to-peer interaction between those who need the computing power and those who sell the computing power, and also in a way that can be organized as a sharing economy market, so that in times when you need additional computing power, you can buy that from the market. At times when you do not need that much, you can rent out what you have, like your excessive computing power. So those are major assumptions. Perhaps you have noticed that I haven't mentioned blockchain yet. So the question is how that relates to blockchain economy, and obviously what happens with computing in Golem is off-chain, but we use blockchain to coordinate, basically for transaction clearing. Also, we want to use blockchain for recording some informations on the state of the networks, perhaps on your users, to make it more resilient.
Okay, perfect. And for the listeners that don't know, can you explain how the Golem supercomputer is capable of CGI rendering through to machine learning to scientific computing?
Yep. So, as I mentioned, this is peer-to-peer network with all the nodes in a way equal, and every node capable of sending tasks, divided into subtasks to other nodes. Those tasks are abstracted to Docker containers at the moment, prospectively perhaps other sandbox environments as well. So in a way, everything that can be parallelized can be split from one larger job into a number of smaller subtasks can be computed on Golem in a quite efficient way. Obviously, long term, we want to go beyond this MapReduce style computing, we would like also to host decentralized services, but this is like a little bit more distance than what we are working on at the moment.
I hear you. Perfect. So how does the decentralized sharing economy help users?
So, you mean in general on
Sure.
the Gollum case?
Well, in this use case, how does that help users?
I believe that approach is quite critical to changing many different things. The first, obviously, is the fact that infrastructure now is quite centralized. So most of the things you use, you run in the so-called cloud is provided by very few companies that have a very strong position. And obviously, like this is not necessarily bad, but in practice that results in not very good effects of centralized infrastructure controlled by few, with prices maybe constantly dropping because of the falling prices of hardware, but probably not as low as they could be. So the first advantage can be like purely economic in terms of organizing the market in a more efficient way than it is organized now, and it comes not necessarily from sharing in Golem, but it comes from like reducing barriers to entry, thanks to Golem. And then obviously sharing may change for many users, the way they interact with the computing power, with the markets. And I don't mean only individual users, but if you imagine Golem as a network that also professional data centers participate in to balance supply and demand, like on the industry scale, that can be pretty amazing. So this is not necessarily only sharing economy between individual users, like a CGI freelancer who at times needs to render something, but apart from that can make use of powerful computers in the basement to just render things for other people. But that can be also used on an industry scale. At least this is our vision.
I like it. And Julian, how has the crypto community played a role in the successful growth of the Golem project?
Well, obviously we are a token-funded project. Like we did crowdfunding back in November 2016. So that was absolutely critical to raising funds to be able to still work on the project. Like we worked on Golem well before we did our crowdfunding, which is maybe not that common nowadays, but back long time ago, back in 2016, we're creating a token to fund a project which was not yet that obvious. We did that in a way that first we had an idea that we thought is fascinating. Then we started doing that, and then after quite some time, we reached out to a wonderful Ethereum community with that idea, and the Ethereum community decided to fund us through like token crowdfunding. So I would say that from the beginning of Golem, this crypto community is very important with us. Also, like Golem is with the Ethereum community specifically from very early days. Piotr Janiuk, CTO Golem, gave first presentation of like Golem idea, which is only like a couple of slides back then, on DevCon 0 of Ethereum community. So like before everything started for Ethereum.
Perfect. And where do you see Gollum in the cloud computing space in a year's time?
I think this is more than a year, but I think ultimately once we and other projects from the space will figure out like many different components of like decentralized internet, we could make the whole infrastructure working in a quite different way, like further abstracting computing from hardware, because like in a way you can say that what we used to have, like we used to do everything on our own computer. Now we do everything on a cloud, which is obviously not on our computer. It is somewhere from the user perspective, but this is somewhere meaning like with the like very specific provider of the infrastructure, and perhaps with services like Golem we can further abstract that with the, I believe, a number of benefits, with the most important one being that infrastructure is not like controlled by a single entity anymore.
Okay, I know I hear what you're saying. And can any computer be used in the Gollum network? Because I know any computer essentially can, but is that the case? I mean, let's say someone's sitting at home.
Like, let's start with reminding that we are in alpha phase still. So in a way, this is not a production network. Like testnet is growing and is, I believe, becoming more and more useful, but this is still testnet. Having said that, like we support like 3 major platforms, obviously, Mac, Windows, and Linux, and obviously like I don't think you are able to run Golem software on Pentium 90, but still like even quite old and not very powerful computers, if they are able to run Golem software, then it can join the network. But obviously, like if you have more powerful machine, then you'll be able to contribute more to the network. And basically, it's always better to have a better node than a worse node.
Of course. Now, what do people, for anyone that doesn't know, get out of renting their computer space later on down the line? What will they receive?
Well, at the moment, they receive nothing, because as I said, this is a test.
Of course.
but obviously, design is that this is as I said, market. So idea is that you set up the Golem node, you define the price for computing, that like a minimum price you are willing to accept, and if your node like contracts some jobs from requesters, so from nodes that need additional computing power, then you are paid in GNT, so in native token, for that job done.
Perfect. So, a broader question here. What do you think about the current situation of the blockchain space? What's your thoughts on it?
I think we are moving like really fast, at least in terms of awareness and communicating our ideas to the public. Of course, that interest is brought by the massive increase in prices, in evaluations. I believe that process is both good and bad. Obviously, it is good because it brings more money to develop that technologies. On the other hand, I think that this is this might be like too much too fast. So clearly, at least this is how I see that. And I'm not talking about Golem. I'm talking about all
overall space,
the industry.
Sure.
That growth of valuations is not really corresponding with the growth of development of the technology, and even worse, with the rapidly growing prices, we have rapidly growing expectations, and this technology is still at the very, very early stages. Like, we still haven't resolved as an industry a lot of very fundamental problems. I believe that these problems will be solved, and I believe there is a solution for those problems. I believe we have funding and talents to solve those problems, but this will take time, and those are things that are very, very difficult to speed up. So using Ethereum as a reference, I believe Ethereum is a really, really promising project. And I also believe that everything that is going on the markets that creates a lot of pressure on Ethereum developers. But I still think that the way they are dealing with that there is a constant progress, which is technology driven, solving problem or challenge after challenge is a good approach. So to sum it up, I believe that overall situation is really, really exciting. But we have promised a lot, and now we have to deliver, especially as people expectations and awareness is growing, because growing prices brought a lot of attention to the space.
Of course. And as you said, you have to deliver. So the first part is promising, the next part is delivering, and that's for the overall space. So we'll see who does and who doesn't. And Julian, while we have you on the show, is there anything you'd like to share exclusively with the SVK Crypto listeners out there?
Well, I think that we should, we should prepare for a very exciting year. So for every year in that space is more exciting than the previous one. And I believe that for some time it will remain so. So yeah, 2018 I think will be a very interesting year.
Perfect. Well, listen, thank you so much for making it on the show today, and we look forward to having you back later on down the line. And I know you're a busy guy, so big thanks from the SVK Crypto team and all the listeners out there.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was fun.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
Big thanks once again to Julian for making it on the show today and stopping by. We really appreciate it, and we wish you the best of luck with your roadmap for 2018 with the Gollum project. That's a wrap. I got to bounce. Have a fantastic day. Remember to like, subscribe, and share our content. Show us some crypto love. Tweet us at SVK_crypto. Email myself, Storry, CSTORRY at svkcrypto.com. And remember to also get involved in the Telegram, the Crypto Crowd Telegram group, which is, if you type it into Telegram, Crypto Crowd, one word, you'll find us, and leave a nice comment as well. Have a great day, and we'll be back tomorrow.
You've been listening to an SVK Crypto podcast original. Follow us on Twitter at SVK_crypto. Email us on cstorry@svkcrypto.com. Leave us a message on our website, www.svkcrypto.com.